Life doesn't whisper, it grinds. It doesn't test you gently, it strips you, layer by layer, until every soft part is gone. You keep waiting for the moment it gets easier, the day it finally starts making sense. It never does. Because life isn't built for comfort, it's built to carve. Every morning feels like a slow strangulation. You drag yourself through hours that don't care who you are, what you've lost, or how much you've given. You're told to stay kind, stay humble, stay good. But you've seen what happens to the kind. You've watched the world feed them to wolves and call it justice. You've watched loyalty used as rope, honesty used as bait. You start to understand the rules were written by the winners. They tell you to play fair while they sharpen their knives. You follow the script and wonder why you keep bleeding. That's the first lesson. Life doesn't reward virtue, it rewards endurance. Pain becomes the sculptor. It chips at you, cuts into the same spot until you think there's nothing left to take. But there's always more. That's how it shapes you, by forcing you to shed every lie you ever told about who you were. You thought pain was punishment. It was preparation. Every betrayal, every night you collapsed into yourself, every time you swore you were done, it was chiseling the weakness off your bones. The weak versions of you had to die. You look around and realize everyone you trusted is gone. Friends who promised forever, lovers who swore they'd stay, family that vanished when you needed them. They don't hate you, they're just busy surviving their own storms. Everyone's drowning, nobody's coming. That truth hits like cold water, but it's freedom. Because now you stop waiting. You stop calling for help that never comes. You stop rehearsing explanations that no one's listening to. You stand there, alone, for the first time without reaching out, and the silence terrifies you. Good. That's the sound of rebirth. The world will call it hardness, cruelty. They'll say you changed. You did. You had to. The person you were could never have survived this long. You learned to stop bleeding in public. You learned to let pain sit beside you without trying to drown it in noise. You learn that silence is strength, not surrender. That real power doesn't shout, it watches, it waits, it moves only when it chooses. You start walking differently, not faster, steadier. You stop trying to convince people of your worth. You stop begging for understanding. You stop explaining why you did what you did. The world doesn't care about reasons. It only respects results. So you build quietly. You take every scar and turn it into blueprint. You turn your tears into cement. You create something solid where the wreckage used to be. No celebration, no witnesses, just the sound of work in the dark. That's discipline. That's the new faith. Not in people, not in promises, but in your own two hands. You start to understand what peace really costs. It's not gentle. It's earned in blood, built in isolation, guarded by teeth. You can't buy it with forgiveness or kindness. You buy it with distance. You buy it with the nights you stay silent instead of explaining yourself again. They will call you cold. They will call you distant. Let them. They can't tell the difference between healed and heartless. Every betrayal taught you something. That loyalty without boundaries is self-harm. That helping everyone is a form of suicide. That sometimes love means walking away while your hands still shake. You learn that peace often looks like being misunderstood. That's all right. You're not here to be understood. You're here to outlast. The world won't stop trying to break you. It's what it does. But every time it swings, you'll learn how to absorb it, how to use it. Pain isn't the enemy. It's the forge. You stand inside the fire until even the flames get tired. And when they die out, you're still there. Burned, yes, but steel. You wanted life to be fair. It isn't. You wanted people to stay. They didn't. You wanted love to mean safety. It never did. What you got instead was truth. Ugly, necessary truth. Now you know. Nothing valuable grows in comfort. Everything real is born from friction. Growth is just another word for pain you survived. You will never be the same again, and that's the point. The softness had to go. The version of you that begged for understanding had to vanish. In its place, something colder, quieter, sharper begins to breathe. Stand alone. Don't reach back. Don't explain. You don't need saving. You are the rescue.
You've been through the fire. Now you walk inside it like it's weather. The heat that once blistered your skin just rolls off you. That's not magic. That's evolution. You don't run from pain anymore. You let it work. You let it carve what it needs to carve. Because you've learned the truth. The pain never left until it taught what it came to teach. You stop looking for lessons in comfort. You stop confusing rest with rescue. There's no rescue. There's only rebuilding, day after day, in silence. You rise, you move, you bleed quietly. You stop telling people you're tired. They wouldn't understand. The ones who cared are gone, and the ones who stayed can't help. So you teach yourself to be both wound and weapon. That's what self-reliance really means. Not independence for applause, but survival without witness. You learn to patch your own heart, to calm your own storms, to speak to yourself like a commander instead of a victim. You wake up, make the bed, and that small order becomes your first victory. The world doesn't notice. It doesn't have to. Every small victory is another brick in the wall between you and the chaos. You used to measure worth by how much you gave. Now you measure it by how little of yourself you waste. You grow fangs, not to bite, but to remind yourself you have them. People still test you. They throw old traps, old guilt, old love. You see it coming this time. You smile, step aside, and keep walking. That's what growth looks like. Recognition without reaction. You learn the beauty of silence after betrayal, not the silence of defeat, but the silence of strategy. You don't chase closure, you let absence speak. It tells them everything louder than your words ever could. It tells them you rebuilt without them, that their part in your story is over. And that realization will haunt them more than any revenge ever would. You understand now that betrayal wasn't a curse, it was revelation. It showed you who was never meant to stand beside you. You stop romanticizing loyalty that wasn't real. You stop calling it loss when snakes shed skin. You move through your days quieter, more deliberate. You notice how peace unsettles people who live for drama. They call you cold because they can't read you anymore. You're not cold, you're precise. You no longer explain peace to chaos. Every scar becomes instruction. You trace them sometimes, not with sadness, but with respect. Each one marks a lesson you didn't want, but needed. Together, they form a map of how you got here. The long way, the hard way, the honest way. You stop needing validation. You stop needing to be right. You stop needing to be liked. You start needing only one thing: quiet competence. To know what you can survive and to keep surviving. That kind of peace confuses people. They mistake it for arrogance. They don't see that it cost everything, every breakdown, every night you thought you wouldn't wake up. Peace was never free. You paid for it with pain and earned interest in solitude. When someone no longer matches your energy, you remove them. No anger, no ceremony, just subtraction. That's maturity. That's survival. You stop fixing people who enjoy being broken. You stop auditioning for places that don't see your worth. Your silence becomes policy. There's power in being misunderstood on purpose. You no longer defend yourself against lies. You let truth defend itself. Time always does the job better than words ever could. People remember what you refuse to say, longer than what you could ever have explained. You start noticing the shift. peace offends the restless. Your calm is an accusation they can't escape. You used to shrink when they called you distant. Now you understand, distance is how you breathe. It's how you keep the air clean. You no longer flinch at endings. You respect them. Endings are honest. They show you what's real. Every door closed teaches you how to build your own. You realize that beginnings are just disguised losses. You welcome them anyway. There comes a morning when you catch your reflection, not the tired, shaking version you remember, but someone else, someone calm, someone untouchable. You study the face and realize you're no longer asking, "Why me?" You're saying, "Try me." That's the shift. That's when you know you've crossed over. You move through crowds like smoke, unbothered, unseen, until you decide otherwise. You don't chase opportunity. You create it quietly and let it find you. You don't announce your plans. You show results. Action replaced hope. Discipline replaced dreams. Now you build and let the silence echo. People who once hurt you will return, not because they've changed, but because they recognize what you became. You won't hate them. You won't welcome them either. You'll simply nod, detached, as they talk to the ghost of who you were. You don't owe them access. You don't owe them closure. They can keep their stories. You have reality. Your absence teaches what your presence never could. They finally understand what they lost, not because you screamed it, but because you disappeared. That's the loudest lesson of all. Silence is the final word. You don't need to be feared. You don't need to be loved. You need to be solid, unshakable, a storm contained in a human shape. That's what the pain built. That's what the betrayal taught. That's what the solitude forged. Now, when the world throws its chaos, you don't react. You absorb. You redirect. You decide. Because you are no longer made of reaction. You're made of resolution. You understand that life will never stop being hard. It's supposed to be. It's the only way it knows how to shape you. And you were meant to be shaped, not broken. So when it hits again, you won't ask why. You'll say, "I know this dam."
You'll tighten your jaw, square your shoulders, and keep walking. That's what the unbreakable do. They keep walking. The story doesn't end with revenge or triumph. It ends with peace. The kind that looks like quiet mornings and a heartbeat you can trust. You earned that. You built it. And no one can touch it. Life is still hard, but so are you.